We're going to be talking about the future of your job. You know, everybody has this dogma. You know, dogma is kind of a religion, you know, like Christianity is a dogma, Buddhism, they're dogmas. It's a set of beliefs you have. And one of the old beliefs that I grew up with is that you should go to school and get a job. And job security was everything. You know, and people are running back to school to get a job, go to higher education for a greater job. Well, I have bad news for you today. And that's what this program is about. We're going to go into the crystal ball, and we're going to look into the future. So the reason you want to look into the future is maybe you can prepare for it. You know, just yesterday morning, we're having our advisor meeting, and one of our friends came in, and she says, my husband just lost his job. And it's a $150,000 a year job. Now, how does a 55-year-old man replace a $150,000 job? He said, I should have listened to Robert earlier. And that's why we have the Rich Dad radio show, is to prepare you to look into the future to see what's coming. We're not, you know, it's a crystal ball. What's coming? Let me tell you one more story, then you'll get the gist of this program. When I was in high school in the 60s, people didn't worry about good grades because if you had bad grades, you actually made more money. Because what happened was in Hilo, Hawaii, we're a sugar plantation town. So if you were a village idiot like me, borderline going to college or just dropping out from high school, even if I didn't go to college, I could get a high-paying job with the Hilo sugar plantation. I could drive trucks or load cranes or, you know, do something like that. And it was ironic that the labor guys who had unions made more money than the school teachers. So every time the school teacher tried to tell me I wouldn't get a high-paying job, I said, wait a minute, you know, I can just go work for the sugar plantation. And I didn't, you know, I went to college and all that stuff, but that was kind of the threat. Well, the high-paying job is now gone because in 1994, the sugar plantation left town and went to the Philippines. And so now all those high-paying jobs are gone, and unfortunately, Hilo is a poor town. You know, it's a lot of struggling little entrepreneurs. There's like 6,000 coffee shops in one block. Everybody's opening a coffee shop. Not that you need a coffee shop anymore. But that's where we're going. So technology is replacing people. And you look at what happened in Detroit, you know, there's still jobs, but robots are doing them. You know, that's the big difference. So that's why Detroit collapsed. And we don't talk about, you know, why that's happening and all this. Our schools still say go to school and get a high-paying job. That's an obsolete idea. So today we're going to be looking into the future, the crystal ball, and beyond robots, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. And this is a very good program, artificial intelligence for those with no intelligence out there. So we're going to do our best to keep it very, 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 very simple. I promise you that. And our guest today are Oren Etzioni. You sound like the captain of the hockey team, Etzioni, who beat the Russians.
And Oren is the superstar of artificial intelligence. And Business Insider said, Oren Etzioni could be the most successful entrepreneur you've never heard of. Yep. But you have started many, many tech companies. You've sold one to Microsoft. You've sold one to eBay.
Can you sell my company?
I mean, you create these companies and all the big guys want you. And now you are working with the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, Paul Allen's Institute. And you guys are doing some incredible things. So if we can start with you, Oren.
And our other guest is Miles Brundage, and he's with the School for the Future of Innovation in Society at Arizona State University. So this is not about today. This is about your job or your child's job tomorrow. It's about artificial intelligence. So, Oren, tell us what the heck is artificial intelligence and why are you optimistic about it, but other people are pessimistic about it?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying I am an optimist. I think you have to be so.
Well, if you made as much money as you had, I'd be optimistic too.
Well,
you know what I mean? But if you lost your job, you'd be a little pessimistic.
There are opportunities and there are challenges. That's not. I can't change that. I can just try and point the way at the positive. But let's start in the beginning. So, what's artificial intelligence? Look, computers are basically overgrown pencils, right? Whether you're,
I can understand that
or not, right? And so they do what you draw with them. And they're very rigid, they're very literal-minded, And so artificial intelligence is about making less rigid pencils. I like to call it combating artificial stupidity. So the first thing I want to reassure you and the audience, okay, for the audience, the jobs are not going away tomorrow. There will be changes. For you personally, radio is still going to be done by humans for the foreseeable future. So your job is safe.
You think I get paid for this? You gotta be kidding me. You think I'm a professional radio guy? Oh my God. Now, but look, what I read also is Gates, and Hawkins and
Elon Musk.
They're concerned about it. Why are they concerned?
What are they so scared of?
They are talking about the far future. Okay, they're talking about things that are 1,000 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now. Hawking, he's the guy who's talking about the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang. So for him, something that happened 50 million years ago, 50 billion years ago, 1,000,000 years into the future, it's all the same. What we ought to be talking about is what's going to happen in the next 5 years in terms of our jobs, and what's going to happen in the next 25 years for our kids. And I would say for our kids, they've got to learn computers, okay? There is no way about it. Even if you're going to be a truck driver, okay, there's going to be, right now there's GPS, there's going to be highly computerized things going on with the truck, with the routing. You've seen this with Uber. So let's start with our kids. In elementary school, as soon as possible, they've got to learn computers. Basically, it's literacy. You used to know how to read and write. You'd be able to do multiplication and addition. These days, you got to be able to write at least a simple computer program if you're a kid.
Yeah, but so we're doing that today. Let me question on something. How can you say it's not going to threaten your job when robots now replace humans on the assembly line at Detroit?
So that is the real short-term concern. So I do think that there are going to be changes in the labor force. The thing to realize is that's always been the case. As you said, in the past it was jobs going offshore. Then people were worried about, immigrants coming to this country. Now people are worried about robots. There's always changes in the labor force, and obviously the big companies are trying to maximize their profits and squeeze every dime of cost that they can. That's the reality. So the real question is, what are we going to do about it?
I understand it, but let me push two more technologies at you. Is that I think the Uber company is already designing a car without the Uber driver, and that's what Google is doing too. So I've already, and I'm a pilot. I flew for the Marine Corps, and I've already gone to where I was trained in Florida, Pensacola. And they're not training pilots anymore. They're training robots to fly those things. So I don't how you can say, if I was a pilot, I'm going to be replaced. So Uber's going to replace, Google's going to replace with a Google-less driver. And the last technology I saw, which I thought was pretty exciting, was that they have a robot's hand now that is soft. The problem with the robot's hand, it crushes stuff if it doesn't. So it's this very gentle hand that can, turn a light bulb and all that. So those are the breakthroughs I see today, and what that means today is when I watch the Japanese, they have Asimo running around the place. Well, that means that's my future maid. And they got this little dog that runs around. Everybody thinks that's cute. They're selling that now. That can replace my dog. You know what I mean? So how about sex after that?
You can't replace the dog, and you're certainly not going to. Well, they actually are talking about replacing sex.
They are talking about. So Oren,
a robot
think
doll.
about all those prostitutes out there. They're going to be out of a job. That's how I look at it. Okay?
Let's get down to the basic problem
this
here.
This is the Rich Dad Show here. We don't. I'm not Oprah. We talk about the real stuff.
So you see,
those soft hands.
What you're talking about, I see opportunity. Think about all the great sex that's to be had with these robots.
I love it. Wait. So Miles, jump in.
Yeah. So on the question of opportunities and challenges, I think it's important to remember that not only are robots and artificial intelligence going to be substituting for jobs in certain roles, they're also going to be complementing humans. And the example of the Industrial Revolution that Oren was referring to with the history of changes in jobs, that there are going to be new industries that are made possible as a result of advances in AI and robotics. So,
but what's going to happen to the prostitutes and house cleaners?
I think that gets to a really interesting question, which is, to what extent do consumers value that they're being served by a human per se, as opposed to just getting a service that has typically been performed by humans. So, for example, with a cashier.
What about Kim's dog?
Nobody replaces my dog. No robot's going to replace my dog.
Once again, Robert Kiyosaki, we're having a goofy conversation with the Allen Institute for No Artificial Intelligence. We're doing our best to look into the future with some of the greatest experts around right now, and we're doing our best to break out of the idea of job security for life and what happens if you get replaced by a robot. So, Oren, am I too far off base, or?
I think, again, let's be concrete. In the next 5 to 10 years, the housekeepers and prostitutes and people doing various kinds of manual labor, pardon the pun, are safe. Okay. We have, the Roomba runs, can't even take the stairs in my house, right? It just tumbles down. So,
well, that's what I said about the Wright brothers too.
And that's a great example of Miles' point, right? The Wright brothers, right? They were inventing technology. That ended up being the job, the pilot's job that you were talking about. So he's absolutely right that technology, one door is closed and another door is open.
Let me ask you this, Oren, and I'd like to hear Miles too. Is the technology is changing so quickly? So in the past, when you had these changes happen, we had years to prepare and workers got retrained. Now that changes are happening so fast, people seem to be going by the wayside because they can't get trained fast enough for the new technology. How does that all work?
I think you are right that technology is constantly moving faster and that we do need more training programs for people.
I started this program by talking about one of the dogmas that people have is I'm going to go to school and get a job. I'm asking the question, will artificial intelligence replace your job? Are you necessary in the next 5, 10, 20 years? And what about your kids? Are you training for a job that does not exist? So this whole thing of job security versus artificial intelligence is the gist of our program. And our guest today is Oren Etzioni. He's the CEO of Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, Paul Allen's Institute. Also with us today is Miles Brundage, and he's with the School for the Future of Innovation in Society at Arizona State University. So, Kim, any comments on today's program on artificial intelligence and the future of job security?
Yeah, let's talk to the entrepreneur. Let's talk to the business owner, because we're talking about artificial intelligence. It creates new jobs, but also eliminates jobs. So, Oren, my first question is to business owners: is AI going to be a partner, a friend, or is it going to become an enemy?
It's going to be both, but the main thing to realize is it's inescapable, right? If we don't do technological advances, the Chinese, the Indians, the Mexicans will. If you don't engage with technology, then the next business next door will. So really the question is how to turn it into your advantage.
And how do you do that?
Well, first of all, you have to be aware of the opportunities, not just the threats. So look at Uber. It's a great example of a company that said, hey, we see this trend. People are underemployed. The taxis are cumbersome. They don't know where to send the cars. They don't know how to send them seamlessly. They combined some intelligence, some very nice computer algorithms, a very handy user interface. They really thought about what people wanted and how technology can deliver that. So everything that's annoying is an opportunity to make things better.
So
go ahead.
Uber employed what you call artificial intelligence?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we call an algorithm for guys like me. It's a set of command and code that tells people, makes it simpler, easier, more reliable.
And an algorithm is just a recipe for the computer.
Okay.
So Miles, in terms of the entrepreneur and business owner, what do you see in terms of what jobs will be safe, what jobs won't be safe? What do you see in the future?
So I think there are basically two ways you can think about it. One is the labor being valued for its own sake? So areas in which people are on the front lines, so cashiers and waiters. If there is a demand for the human touch, then that's an area in which that form of labor is safer.
Let me ask this question, interrupting. When I go to Safeway, right, there's human guys, and then there's the barcode guy.
Exactly.
Yep.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so I think that might be an instance where the consumers actually don't really put aren't really voting with their wallets to keep those people employed if they're willing to use the machine. So sometimes
but that's AI right there.
Yeah, so I was actually just at an airport in Britain recently, and there was sort of an option of using the machines or going to be served by the cashier, and some people were willing to wait longer in line to actually get served by a human. So to the extent that there are more people like that, then some of those jobs are safer. But on the other hand, you can also look in terms of what is the nature of the job. If it involves creativity, if it involves social interaction, if it involves touching and sensing, so using your eyes and ears, those are all areas in which robots and artificial intelligence are currently lacking. So areas in which you're using those sorts of things are going to be safer if you sort of break down what the actual tasks are.
You know, and we were at this hotel in Hawaii, and the bartender was talking about, our poor friend, he's been working as the parking attendant for years and years, and they just replaced him with an automatic gate. And he goes, luckily, my job will be safe forever. And Robert and I were just reading in the paper that day about this wine bar that opened up that has no servers, it's all automated. You help yourself. And we're like, okay, hopefully.
Once again, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. We're talking about artificial intelligence and its positives and its negatives and what it means to job security. Like just talking about the checkout. Every time I'm going through the Safeway checkout, I look at the human and then I look at my little barcode reader. And I wonder if that human even realized that's their competitor. They might be replaced. So our guest today are Oren Etzioni. He's the CEO of the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence. He's an entrepreneur, founder of several mega-million-dollar companies, Faircast, sold to Microsoft, and Decide.com to eBay. And Miles Brundage, he's with the School of the Future of Innovation in Society at Arizona State University. So, Oren, what else would you like to say about the future, the good and the bad?
What are you working on? What's the Allen Institute working on? What's the goal there?
Let me first say that our motto is AI for the common good. So our goal is not to take away people's jobs. Our goal is to build computer systems that help you and help solve problems. For example, if you think some of the biggest problems that humanity is facing, whether it's AIDS or Ebola or climate change, making better use of energy, the question is, are we going to rely on scientists to solve these on their own? They're overwhelmed with information, publications, the rapid change of technology, or can computers lend them a hand? We're building computers, for example, that can read scientific papers and work together with a scientist to help create new discoveries.
Right. One of the things I read that you were doing is, we're all overloaded today with information. I go home and information is piled on my desk. Articles this, read that. The computer's screaming at me. Are you saying AI can process more information faster?
AI can definitely process more information faster, can look at billions of things per second, and what it can do is filter for you. So it can't be as sophisticated as even you.
Oh, give me a break. Come on, don't pick on me now. Just because I can't use my cell phone.
Or a computer.
And it also can't exactly know your taste. But what it does is it can take the millions of messages and articles and so on and present you with a menu that says, okay, here's the top 50 or the top 100 that we think you'd be interested in. And that really helps.
I would just add that AI today and robots in the foreseeable future have different strengths and capabilities compared to humans. So, if you take the example of filtering information, even if they're not able to understand each page at 100% the level of a human, they're still able to read millions or billions of pages. So I think there's a strong complementary angle to it and not just substituting for humans.
Well, let me apply AI straight to your pocket right now. All you listening right now, if you have money in the stock market, you're being screwed by AI. And I have a book in front of me by Michael Lewis. It's called Flash Boys. The financial planner will tell you invest for the long term over 40 years. You know how stupid that advice is? Today with AI and HFT, high-frequency trading, a computer can trade in milliseconds and microseconds. A millisecond is a thousandth of a second. A microsecond is a millionth of a second. And you're going to invest for the long term. Do you know how stupid that is? They have a thing called front running and dark pools. That's where Goldman Sachs, you give some exchange or money, and they rip you off. They trade both sides of the account in microseconds. In 3 microseconds, you're broke. So what do you have to say about that? That to me is AI used in an improper way or used upon a artificially no intelligence society who are being financed or being educated by Wall Street.
Well, I really beg to differ, just to jump right in here. I think if you're trading frequently, then you're right. And all kinds of tricks, and they've been around for a while, but technology just made them worse. They will get the better of you. But if you invest for the long term, all those little high-frequency things come out in the wash. Basically, if you're investing even for 5 years, the real question is a macro question. How's the U.S. economy going to do? So the most useful thing I can tell you is buy an index fund for the U.S. market and don't worry about all that high-frequency stuff.
Boy, you really, really have not read my stuff, have you? I mean, no, I don't disagree with it. I agree. If you're an idiot, buy a long-term fund. Right now, I'd rather go short. I'd rather have a fund that goes down. I'd rather have a bear fund. But the average person doesn't know what front running's doing to them. Today, guys like you can make millions and billions of dollars just front-running, shaving pennies off of each share of stock times $1 billion. That's what artificial intelligence is doing, and Mr. and Mrs. Average Punter right now is hoping that, Apple goes up another $2 or something. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, too. You mentioned earlier, all these other countries are racing to be the top runner for artificial intelligence. It really is a financial issue, isn't it also? I mean, they're making all these they're predicting that, trillions of dollars are going to be made using artificial intelligence for products and services. Is that is that part of what's fueling this whole race?
One thing that I think it's helpful to distinguish is between technology and information technology and computers in general and artificial intelligence in particular. So there's a huge amount of change that's going on. And, for example, high-frequency trading is really about making the trade as quickly as possible. The intelligence part is about trying to make...
Oren, what high-frequency trading is about is actually processing as much information from multiple exchanges and then trading against a guy that's trying to buy or sell something. And, so it is really an unfair advantage to the guy who operates the HFT algorithms. It
brings up the ethics issue use. What's the intention behind the AE? Or AI, excuse me.
I completely agree with you, and they're in the sense that there are people talking about regulating that out of existence or taxing transactions, so they can't do that. Again, this becomes an economic issue. What I'm pointing out is that it's not actually an issue of intelligence, right? You mentioned front running. If the computer knows what you're going to do and it jumps in the line ahead of you and buys the stock before you do, that's not an intelligence. That's a simple rule in the program. So there is.
It's intelligent to me. I mean, that's not easy to do for a human being. Do you know what I mean? By the time I open up the annual report, those guys have made $1 billion.
Yeah. Think about a calculator, right? Nobody says that a calculator is artificial intelligence, but the calculator can multiply and add numbers better than any of us can. Even me as a PhD in computer science. So,
yeah. No, I agree with you. What you said about the pencil being, AI at some level is it makes us more intelligent. But the question is, how far is this going to go?
Right. Well, those are real issues, and I think the best way for people to understand them, even people who are not comfortable with their cell phones, is take a course on the technology. I think we can educate and arm ourselves. There's courses, community colleges, online courses. You can learn about this stuff. It does not need to be scary and mysterious.
I didn't say it was scary and mysterious. I'm saying it's going so fast, I don't think the brain can keep up. What do you think there, Miles?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Oren was saying, that there are a lot of basic principles of computer science that you don't need a PhD to understand. So I'm actually teaching a class right now at a middle school, teaching some of the basics of AI and computer science, and kids are able to get it. So I think adults absolutely can keep up with some of the basic ideas behind these technologies.
You guys are both too optimistic for me. So once again, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. We're talking to Oren Etzioni. He's the CEO of Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, Miles Brundage, and he's the School of the Future of Innovation in Society at Arizona State University. One of the problems is that it's invisible. People cannot see what he's doing, as you can see a cell phone. And also Miles Brundage, he's with Arizona State University, a great school. He's the School for the Future of Innovation in Society, contributor to Slate Magazine. You can contact Miles at miles.brundage, BRUNDGAGE at ASU.edu. And also Oren's at Allen, ALLENAI.org. And these are young people you should listen to. And we're doing our best because I'm the old guy right now. I call myself the Technosaurus Rex, so I represent all you old guys out there, okay? So let's start with Miles. What do you think we've talked about so far? What do you think people should know about AI, and how do they catch up if they need to catch up?
So we've been talking about the opportunities as well as challenges that are going to be facing individuals as well as the economy as a whole as these technologies develop. And I think the key thing to understand is that technology can be both a substitute for human labor as well as a complement. So for entrepreneurs and investors, I think it's really important to keep abreast of some of these technologies.
I mean, an old guy like me, I don't even understand what you guys are talking about.
How do you keep up?
So I would say, two things would be useful. One is just taking basic online courses or reading articles on the basics of computer science. There's actually
is Slate Magazine a good source?
Yeah. So I mean, I would also dig a little bit deeper. So for example, there's a free book called Practical Artificial Intelligence for Dummies, which you can
there you go.
check
out. Now you're talking, man.
Now we're talking.
And then I would also just keep abreast of the latest developments in the field. So there are websites like MIT Technology Review, IEEE Spectrum. So there are all sorts of websites.
Is there anything specific for
How about People Magazine?
People Magazine, probably not so much.
Is there anything specific for the entrepreneur?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure. Honestly, I think just keeping abreast of the big news
picture,
and AI and robotics
okay.
is key, and then you can think about how it applies in your particular case.
So Oren, once again, thank you for your time because he's very busy. He's extended a little bit longer. We appreciate that. And so, let's take it into what you see. How do people like me, old guys, not get run over by the truck?
Well, I want to talk about something we haven't yet talked about, which is medicine. We all know today that medicine is way too expensive. It's a huge part of the economy.
Yep.
How do we bring the cost of medicine down? Question number one. Number two, even though it's so expensive, you go to see the doctor and you worry, are you really getting the best advice? Are they really up on the latest information, the latest and greatest treatments? And again, that's a huge area for technology and artificial intelligence, is to make medicine cheaper and better for people. And that's in cities and in rural regions where you may even have a hard time getting to see a specialist. So I think, again, it's always kind of nostalgic. You take a sip of wine or beer and think about the good old days, and really the good old days is when we were young. That's the good old days. But we can't afford to do that anymore. So we look to the future, and there's threats, and I think the threats are real, but there's also opportunities. How about better, cheaper medicine?
I like that. So how would that happen? How would that, very simply, how would we reduce costs? Would it be through data capture? What is it?
For example, a lot of the questions that people have that right now they go in to see the doctor and you wait in line and it takes people's time, they could be answered by online information systems. Likewise, surgical procedures in the future, there's already robot-assisted surgery. In the future, if robots can help do at least part of the procedure, that's huge. That's a cheaper procedure, probably with a better outcome, right? The robot never forgets to wash his hands, but my doctor does.
Good point.
Let me throw a curveball at you because this is kind of my concern. Is here we have, we're talking about front running with the stock market and all this. I think one of the biggest challenges we see for the guys my age, the baby boomers, is how we're going to afford to live when there's, when we're old, we don't know how to make more money. We're not invested for the future. How is that social problem going to play out, or how does AI support that? Because that's my concern. How does my generation survive when they're not technically up to date like you guys are?
It's a great question, and I will tell you right now, I cannot solve that problem. The main
Stupidity.
Thing is, I hope you're married well. Your kids are there to help you, because you are kind of painting me into a corner here. You say, "Hey, I'm a Technosaurus Rex. I'm out of money." It's like, sorry, buddy, I can't help you.
There's no magic chip I can stick in my ear or something. to make me intelligent?
Very, very true. There is no magic. At the same time, with imagination, creativity, you can still come up with an opportunity and, maybe start an innovative radio show. Use technology, turn into a podcast.
There you go. There you go. Now you're talking.
Hey, come on, Oren. I may be old, but I'm not that old. I know radio is going backwards,
Hey, let me ask you this. When it comes to AI, here's where I think the scariness is, and I was reading about Musk and Gates and Hawking, is that it also depends upon the user's intentions, right? So you got all these like war robots or battlefield robots they're talking about now, and what happens if all this artificial intelligence gets in the hands of people that want to do bad with it? That's one of the concerns, because one of the questions that Hawkins asked, he said that the experts are surely doing everything possible to ensure the best outcome, correct? And it's all about the safety and the ethics behind the AI. I think that's where the concern is of the scariness.
Kim, that's really a very insightful question. I mean, speaking seriously, I think autonomous weapons, AI weapons are very scary stuff.
Yeah.
I've signed an open letter that many of us have signed saying that we should have a treaty the same way that we have an international treaty against landmines because they're so dangerous. We should, consider these kinds of treaties about AI weapons. But really, the most important point is what you said about it's the person's intention. The computer is a tool. That's what I mean by say it's an overgrown pencil. And so the real questions are, what are people going to do with it? And that's really a topic for people to decide, for us to discuss in shows like this one, to discuss with our representatives. It's not a technology question. It's an ethics and policy question.
That's a tough question because, there's all that stuff about Princess Di trying to get rid of landmines, and now we have, IEDs set off by cell phones, which is artificial intelligence. You know what I mean? So anyway, once again, our guest today, Oren Etzioni. He's the CEO of the Allen Institute of Artificial Intelligence. He's an entrepreneur, extremely successful guy. He's created Faircast, sold to Microsoft in 2008, and Decide.com, sold to eBay. Miles Brundage, he's from the School of Future Innovation in Society. And that's the ethical part, which is a tough subject. And he's at Arizona State University, contributor to Slate Magazine. What did you sell to Microsoft, Oren?
Well, so the technology that I've developed has tried to use AI for the consumer. We all know how airlines play with the prices of airfares. They go up, they go down. It seems random. You buy a ticket, and 2 days later, it's $200 cheaper, and you feel like you've been screwed.
Really?
To use the technical term, yes.
So, I understand that finally. Keep going,
so what Faircast did was to anticipate these fluctuations, and it's kind of like Faircast is like forecast, but for airfares. It would tell you when's the right time to buy your air ticket to save money. And Microsoft bought that, and unfortunately, like with so many things, recently they bought it in 2008. It ran for a while. In the last year or so, they killed it. So they killed my baby. I have to say, yeah. But again, it's a great idea, and I think that prices of more and more goods on Amazon and Walmart and so on, you'll notice that the prices change all the time. I'm not talking about the annual spring sale. I'm talking about you look at the price today, you look at it tomorrow, it can be quite different. And so people need help figuring out when's the right time to buy.
And so what did you sell to eBay at Decide.com?
So Decide was really kind of an extension of that, as the name suggests, is a way to help people make decisions about when's the right time to buy and also what's the right thing to buy. Should you buy a Samsung or an iPhone or just a simple phone like you have?
You assume I have a
phone. Well, you called me, didn't you? I'm just teasing. I think you're a lot smarter than you sell yourself. Come on. And so people need help making decisions. Really, the short answer was the next generation of consumer reports.
And that's right? And that's what Miles is working on, right? I mean, what I love about the two of you, your ethics and morals are in the right direction. Unfortunately, as we know, there's other guys on the other side of the trade. What do you want to say about doing good for the people? One of the most obsolete ideas is go to school and get a job. I mean, look, you're being replaced up one side and down the other. And so that's what artificial intelligence is about. And you heard me talking about Flash Boys, which is a book everybody should read. For those of you who are in the stock market or counting your 401k, your IRA, and all that other garbage to protect you, you better watch out, because it's being gamed or being corrupted by artificial intelligence. It's called high-frequency trading and dark pools and front running. So when you look at the ticker tape on CNBC or any show you're watching, those numbers are bogus. They're not real. Simply because artificial intelligence is front running. It means they're not real numbers. So these young guys, like these guys we were talking to, they can make millions of dollars in seconds while your financial planner is telling you to invest for the long term. The other thing, too, is every time I'm checking out at Safeway, I look at that poor clerk sitting there, and she's checking away manually. And meanwhile, I'm standing there with artificial intelligence scanning barcodes. Right, Kim?
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening. And you know, you look at the whole artificial intelligence, there's going to be tons and tons and tons of opportunity, tons of places to invest, companies to build, products to build.
Oh, come on.
Then the other side of it
They don't have the skill set to do that.
Yeah, but then the other side of it is how far is this going to go? Yeah. And what's the ethics and the safety measures being put in place? So when it does get to really big places and we go to war and things like that, what's going to happen? So it's a really hot topic. It's a hot topic.
So I want to thank Oren Etzioni. He's the CEO of Allen Institute of Artificial Intelligence. And this is the Robert Kiyosaki Institute of No Intelligence. We talk about making things as simple as possible. And Miles Brundage, he's from the School of Future Innovation in Society at Arizona State University. So I want to thank them for their time and contribution. They're great guys, good sports. So you can submit your questions to AskRobert@richdadradio.com. So what is the first question?
Robert, our first question today comes from Ryan in Dallas, Texas. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He says, Robert, you say the hardest aspect of running a business is dealing with people. Would you advocate replacing people with robots and machines? Is this the best way to deal with this challenge?
The reason I play that music, domo arigato, Mr. Roboto, everybody looks at TV. I look at TV and they have Asimo. The Japanese are experts at robots today. So are the Koreans. And they actually have, robot dolls, and they're predicting with soft technology. You know what I mean? They can make a robot's hand do surgery, but also take a light bulb and spin it without crushing it. The most important thing is your team. People are more important than ever before. But if you have stupid MFs, people who are not staying ahead, not studying and all that, you have problems, man. You have people who think, well, I went to college, I have a college degree, or I'm an accountant and I'm an attorney, but they're not staying up to date. Get rid of them. Look, it's moving too fast. Business is a team sport. Just as Miles Brundage went out, I say, hey, Miles, can I stay in touch with you? The reason I want to stay in touch with Miles is because I'm not going to read Slate magazine. I'm not going to read his documents, but I can call him. You see, if you're hanging out with village idiots who are, there was an old TV show, Married with Children, with Al Bundy. He scored 4 touchdowns. Most guys today are Al Bundys. They're still living in the past when they were studs, having sex and throwing footballs. But today you've got to hang out with people who are up to date, moving, and come from different disciplines of knowledge. I come into my house and I'm just overwhelmed with magazines, articles, plus on the web and all this. How do I process all that information? And also I was talking about Michael Lewis and Flash Boys. These guys can process more information on the stock market in microseconds, which is a millionth of a second. And a millisecond is a thousandth of a second. And your financial planner is telling you to invest for the long term. You got to be nuts. Any comments, Kim?
Well, I just think it's funny that Ryan says, how do you replace people with robots? And then I'm thinking about, okay, let's say you're a small business owner and you've got you and 2 robots running your company. Well,
might be better off.
The problem is you got to be the smartest guy on the team then, because you got to program those robots. So if you're going to start bringing robots into your company, you better have somebody like an Oren or a Miles who can program, because heavens knows I wouldn't be able to do that.
The lesson is choose your people very, very carefully. One of the advantages of the Rich Dad radio show is I get to talk to some very, very smart people from very diverse areas of the economy. The problem with most people is they're too specialized. I'm a medical doctor or I meditate every day, but they're missing the economy around them. And the economy is not just made of school teachers. There are doctors, lawyers, accountants, legal guys, stock market, bond markets, real estate markets, currency markets. Yeah, I know all the answers. I went to college. Well, get that person off your team. Next question.
Our next question comes from Brian in San Diego. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He says, Robert, as a helicopter pilot from the Vietnam War, do you support drones as weapons? Do you see a need for human pilots in warfare? Will drones make the world safer or more dangerous?
It depends on what you use them for. I think for most people, it'll be fun, it's kind of a hobby. But as a helicopter pilot, I have very fond memories of flying down this large river. And a helicopter can stop and look you right in the, like you're having breakfast, and I can stop there. And I never did it. But a lot of my friends just blew people away sitting in their houses with a helicopter. You can do the same thing with a drone. I want you to think about that. And, Miles and Oren are very optimistic and positive guys, but I am pretty much pessimistic because I've seen too much. Talk about, Princess Di, we're going to get rid of mines. Today we have radio-controlled IEDs and improvised explosive devices set off by cell phones. That's artificial intelligence, and they're killing the crap out of people. So it's good and bad. Next question. All right, any comments on that, Kim?
Yeah, well, just going back to the artificial intelligence, as we were studying about all of this, there was an article and it said that actually more than 50 nations are developing battlefield robots. And here's the kicker. The most sought after, this article says, the most sought after will be robots that make the kill decision, the decision to target and kill someone without a human in the loop. That's, I think, where the scary part of the whole IE question is coming up, because if it gets to that example.
And that's why I brought up Flash Boys. Please get that book. If you're a stock market guy, read that book. Michael Lewis, read it. How much knowledge they can process in a microsecond, which is a millionth of a second, and a millisecond, which is a thousandth of a second, about the stock market. They can take so much information that you and I can never process and execute a buy or sell order. That's what's happening. And your financial planner says, just invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That is an effing idiot. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Carla in Las Vegas. Favorite book, Midas Touch. As an entrepreneur, I know the importance of staying on top of trends, not only in my field, but in business in general. I know there are opportunities ahead, and I'm trying to make sure that I see the upcoming trends in business. Robert, what do you do to spot future opportunities?
Well, that's what I kind of said to you earlier, is that you have to have a team that's smart. If you have these John Waynes or these, I meet them all the time. There's guys my age who went to college, and they think they're still Al Bundys. They scored 4 touchdowns in college when they were 22 years old. And their college education is obsolete. So my team, there's so many changes coming in law so fast right now. That's why I have Tom Wheelwright. There's so many changes in the finance market. That's why Ken McElroy, our real estate guy, is part of our team. There's so many changes coming in how we treat disabled people. That's why Josh and Lisa Lannon are the social capitalists on our team. But you've got to have people on your team who are not only smart, but they're staying up to date. So as I said earlier, when Miles left the office and left the studio just now, he's right down the street at Arizona State University. I said, Miles, may I call you? So if the next time I have a question on AI, I know who I'm going to call. I'm not going to call me, that's for sure. Any comments, Kim?
Well, I mean, what you're talking about, too, with Josh and Lisa, social capitalists, and what Kenny's doing now in the apartment building, they're always looking for problems to solve. And all I see a lot of problems coming down the future. And if you can figure out a way to solve some of these major problems that are coming down, and even in the world of IE, it's going to create new problems. In the world of AI. In the world of AI, it's going to create a lot of problems as well as opportunities. So if you can figure out how to solve that problem, that's a way for great opportunity.
I know, but you got to stick around with people who are staying up to date. That's the question. That is really, I meet so many village idiots who were Al Bundys 20 years ago, and they're completely obsolete today. But in their minds, they're smart. You're obsolete the day you graduate from college today. That's how bad it's getting. As I said, I don't know how those Safeway clerks can sit there manually checking out my, apples and oranges, but right next to them stands a machine that you can scan automatically. I don't know how they can sit there and go, I have job security and I have benefits. I feel for those people. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Glenn in Connecticut. Favorite book, Midas Touch. He says, my girlfriend says she plans to leave her job at 55 years old and just get a part-time job till she turns 62. I have a hard time convincing her that the government is broke and that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. How do I convince her that anarchy rules this nation and the rest of the world?
That's one of the toughest questions of all, and that's why I asked Oren Etzioni. I said, is there like something like a hearing aid you can put in your ear, which is artificial intelligence? He said, I'm afraid not. And the question you're asking is my frustration, and I deal with my family and my friends and all that who are living in la-la land. And, I see them sitting at the bar watching TV, who's going to win, the Super Bowl and all this. And meanwhile, with artificial intelligence, you're being ripped off in the stock market. The government's printing money. China just devalued the yuan. The stock market is crashing, and they're still sitting there, well, I'm going to send my kid to school and get a job, and we're going to save money, and we're going to invest long term in the stock market. I'm going to buy a house, and we're safe. I mean, that is stupid right now. Any comments, Kim?
Well, yeah, and I think what's going to happen, too, is a lot more and more, especially women, more and more women are finding out that they cannot retire. Because the benefits
can't depend
aren't
upon
there.
a man.
Well, they cannot depend upon man, but she's depending upon Social Security, and it's not any different. She's depending on somebody else to take care of her. And what's happening with women that get older, they're finding themselves more and more in financial straits. They're going to keep working. She's going to probably keep working because she's going to find the benefits aren't going to be there.
Please ask her. We have a we have a book called Second Chance. It just came out in January 2015. In there are charts and graphs from the U.S. government about why people are screwed financially. And it talks about Social Security, but most people will not read. So there's a video called The Man Who Could See the Future. It's available at richdad.com. It's 60 minutes long. Sit down with her because she probably will not read Second Chance. But if she watches the video, you may wake her up.